KZ guarding Paul George. George, step back. Oh my God.
You can't defend
Look
that
at
any
him.
better.
Yes, sir. Paul George backdoor. Batum going up high and finding him. Here he is guarding Paul George.
None of that's going to matter, though, if they can't get stops on this end.
That's a tough shot, Paul George.
De'Aaron Fox's wife over there cheering after that Keegan shot. She tweeted out today, "Happy Keegan Murray Day."
Oh my gosh, Paul George. Kings need a stop. Down 5. Keegan guarding George. George spinning, layup, good.
That momentum and that pace up.
George down the lane. Look out below as he rattles the street lamps out on
Timeout.
George picked up by Porter Jr. rises for 3 in the tie. Damn! 93s! George goes to work. George.
I'll say it again, it doesn't take much for a shooter to see the rim, and Jalen's seeing the rim.
14 third-quarter points now. Tough turnaround for George.
Green has been working. Maybe his shot hadn't gone down. He was a little out of rhythm, but he never stopped working. That's a great sign for the Rockets.
Pulled back 3 for George. He, too.
Got hit on the arm. He's signaling to the referees.
George off the pick, into the lane, the Euro step, and the corkscrew finish.
I'm telling you, that's a beautiful coat.
It brings out the vibrancy of my red hair.
I was going to say, that is such a redheaded move to wear.
You can't allow them just to move the basketball freely. If so, they'll pick you apart. That's why they're efficient. And speaking about picking apart, that's why that decision has to be made quickly. And John Wall put it right on time and on target.
George twisting and turning, fading and firing and filling it up. 15 points for Jofford. George tailgated for a moment by Markkanen. Now by Conley on the switch. Down the lane. Awkward shot. Awkward for whom? 19 first-half points for Paul George.
Excuse me, when you mentioned 2 for 1, this is what we were talking about. They get another opportunity now to score.
George creates space again. Flicks the wrist. Oh, bucket for George. LeVert. Played on 3 teams the last 3 seasons. George, a step back, foul circle jumper. It is good. Paul George with 16.
Flash into the open area in case they double team Paul George.
George accelerates down the lane. Off the window. Hot damn! The Clippers take the lead. Counted at a 5.
No points in the previous 2 games. George on the baseline, that's his spot. You see that all the time, that little fadeaway from about 15 feet.
And knock down the top one.
Turnover by Westbrook. That's 4 by the Lakers. Here's Paul George, 6 points so far. Make it 8 for George. Post Mark Jackson Clipper days. I noticed I said the last 25 years.
Yes, leave me out of that.
George again, his sweet spot. The intensity is picked up on both ends by both teams. George, tough shot, rattles it down.
Been really good early to start this game.
Paul George, the step back.
PG-13.
Hornets down 10. Paul George, a step back 3.
Coming off the bench. Very rare to see a guy as accomplished as that coming off the bench at this point of his career because due to injury.
Paul George, a baseline splash for him.
6 of 13 overall, that's 46%.
Oh, Paul George with a rainbow of his own.
Battling inside. Just out-jumped Zubac there.
All 7 of his field goals in the paint. That will count. A blocking foul underneath.
Wait, force him to put the ball down on the floor.
With a 1-point lead, here come the Clippers. George muscling in on Highsmith, and the foul. Paul George trying to take the game into his hands.
Before that, I said if he could become a more consistent 3-point shooter, the better off his team would be. Him knocking down that consecutive 3-point shot put his team up 8 points.
22-14 is Paul George. It's a nifty lay-in to go down. Gil guarding George. High ball screen for PG. He hits a 3.
And Porzingis has to get up.
He grew up just outside of Boston. George another 2, and it goes for Paul George. And PG now with 10 points here in the first half. But a long way to go. Leonard on the prowl, gives it over to Senior. Good ball movement here to start things off for the second half for the Clippers. Long two for George. It settles in. Paul George with 15.
So enticing to go for that steal. But Batum thought he had it, and you miss it. This is what happens. Is Tatum gets you, but then Paul
Brown, one of the more cerebral players in the league, on and off the floor. George back in the game, making an imprint to the rim. Oh, and gets the bounce. 22.
Clippers down by 5. They're just joining us. Kawhi Leonard on the bench with 2 quick fouls. George launching butter.
Need to rub it into you there a little bit, but the pretzels there in Philadelphia, awesome, absolutely next level. George, bump going foul for Paul George.
Okay, let me finish.
I'm going to be honest with you, Jim, and I usually am.
George for 3, it's good. Include that in your honesty. Quote to me right now.
Front iron. George pulls up and hits a mid-range of a 30-24. Clippers lead. 40 seconds to go in the first.
Send him the help. Does the help come? Nope.
Just pulls up from 3. Back-to-back triples for
Tough one because you've got to respect Harden's drive.
Paul George. Mid-range game is true.
Marcus Morris with the rebound. Paul George rocks that dribble, rises and fires and fills it. He has 5 dimes to go with 16 points. Paul George with a shot right down the middle.
It's an incredible sports town, and anybody that has lived here swears by it. Is Bogdanovich able to lay it in, but back on the other side, Paul George puts on a clinic.
Paul George works the top against Killian. Drives it. Jump stop gun goes. Count it and a foul. Too hot for Zubac. Pistons bring it the other way, but here's a steal by George. And a jam.
Killian
took it away from Killian.
He never saw him, George. He was lurking back.
And hopefully he returns. Raptors can catch a break. There's Paul George fading. Come around, but guarding better. There's George getting right to the iron. That ends the run of the Raptors. 5 of 19 from 3. And Paul George right to the bucket. Lead growing. From 3 on the road. That's #1 in the NBA. And tonight, they're 40%. Here's George. A little shake shimmy. Siakam gets tied. 2:40 left. George behind the back. Step back. Bucket.
Feels like a layup for Paul George.
Sure was. George takes it.
Paul George.
George in the paint.
Wow. Scored the basket. Watch how physical Paul George is on this drive.
Gets it to Batum. Paul is feeling it.
Yeah.
George is setting up. They clear it out for him. He comes up shooting. Oh. How smooth was that?
That was real smooth.
George.
Oh, wow.
George beat the record of Reggie Miller. So the Pacers have the 2 fastest threes or baskets to start a game. Paul George starts with a 3.
Feeding off of that game he played against the Cavs, but he's bringing some offense with him.
Paul George has plenty of offense. He has 5.
I'm not sure they're prepared to do that, but they got enough talent they can win a series.
George goes inside and pounds it down. 56% from the field. George raises up again.
Is what I think. But I understand your point. I think it's a valid point. At 6'4", that's strong. You would much rather see. Paul, I thought he made a quick switch and lost it.
And Paul George. Oh, crowd loving it. George, shot fake, reloads, got it.
Bring a shoot for George for the lead. He put it in. 18.
So the Lakers, as we
make our way to the trade deadline February 9th. And a nice pickup. Woo, the clip. George working with Zubats. Little step back. Boy, you can't guard that. Paul George. Probably more newsworthy. Here's Batum now. And George with the follow. Paul George. Shot clock at 6. Beverly's on George. George. Got to get one up here. Beverly all over him. Oh, what a tough shot. Paul George. Luke Kennard is the next piece to come back.
And John Wall.
And John Wall. Kennard could be back as early as Thursday. George with a straight run to the rim. 7-3.
Well, I remember a week ago they got 2 of those against the Clippers. They were ready for that one. Paul George is ready to finish it in transit.
Milwaukee, and then Knicks and Nets for the Clippers. George lets it fly. Oh, he's got some talent. Paul George.
NBA days when he was coaching the Kentucky Spurs, we see PG stick the arm in, the steal, and the emphasis at the end.
The league's a better place when he is in it. We talked about it when we were in San Antonio on Friday as George glides to the rim and lays it in.
And then how about the in Houston, the combination of Ralph Sampson along with Hakeem Olajuwon? Not bad, right?
One thing the Spurs have been great at is not necessarily finding the top guys. It's the guys later in the draft that has kind of built that dynasty.
Hunter spins, gives it back. Paul George with Murray on him. Paul goes to the corner, fakes and fires. Got to his spot, knocked it down.
Huge shot. Knicks 2 of 5 from behind the arc. Clippers 4 for 7. Both three-point range.
Both teams average 12 makes a game.
Just over 2 minutes in second quarter. 4-point Clippers lead. George extends it to 6.
And he's defended by Sumner. 12 to shoot. George lines it up. Bottom on a 3. Clippers with a chance to go back in front. 3 minutes to play in the third. George, the cross on Smith, takes it in. Corkscrews for 2.
He was a Clipper killer last year. George gets the contact from Metu. It's a late whistle, but it's a good one. Count it. With 24 threes tonight. If you wonder, 25 is the franchise high. George counted on a foul.
And they've cleared up. They're all high for Paul George on the low.
George, corner 3. Big shot for PG-13. Davion on the floor for defensive purposes. Here's Paul George getting to the strong hand, and PG is...
They have not said it's a suspension either.
Right. They count the basket. Yes, George counted, and a foul. Zubats. George, step back, three-pointer. Got it. Paul George again is... Pass stolen by Terrence Mann. Mann ahead to George. George crossover inside, and the finish. George adjusts, goes inside, layup, top shot. Some contact.
If you open shoot the basketball, so it's a welcome sight to see guys step in rhythm with confidence.
George.
He's got to step up a little bit earlier to stop him from rolling to the rim.
George can't get inside, lets it go from 16. Said there's a definite vibe that is different. And in a related note, Intuit Dome on time to open. Kevon Harris checks in for Orlando. George will go right at him. Twisting, turning, fading, firing, counted on a foul. Time remains. Morris sets the screen. George trying to operate, steps into a 3. It's good. Here we go. 106 to 104.
Gordon and Plumlee. Terrence Mann on the deck. And Nick Batum in the corner. George strolls in with a high hook off the winger. Clipper possession. Skip pass cross court. Leonard. Grabbed by George. Turns. 4 to shoot. Crossing over on Simon. Steps back. Launches a triple. Paul George. Big shot.
Clippers by 1 coming out of the timeout. 4:25 to play. George.
Oh, my goodness! A swiveling Skywalker. George with the flush. Live in downtown LA.
It's a backdoor set up in the timeout. The 360 finish. Play that got my partner a little bit excited. Backdoor. 360. Paul George hanging before he throws it down. I would think that would inspire you a little bit if you're a team.